biggest surprises from last year for me for Big Finish was the latest set of 11th Doctor Chronicles from Big Finish starring Jacob Dudman, where they give the 11th Doctor a brand new companion called Valerie, played by Sophia Ingar. And this set, Geronimo, is genuinely one of the best sets that Big Finish put out last year. It takes place, essentially, midway through Series 7. So the 11th Doctor has said goodbye to Amy and Rory, has met Clara in the past in the Snowmen, and is now trying to hunt for the woman twice dead who said, run you clever boy and remember. And the 11th Doctor is trying to find Clara throughout time and space. And along these adventures, he meets Valerie, who is from the 53rd century, who is a cyborg with bionic robot parts, etc., etc. Really cool, fun sci-fi premise shit. And Geronimo was the first of that set, and it is continuing now in All of Time and Space, which sees the 11th Doctor and Valerie get caught up in all sorts of meta-textual and existential adventures, and this was such a fun box set, just conceptually. So the first one is All of Time and Space by Ellery Quest. Now, the 11th Doctor and Valerie are still trying to hunt for Clara, trying to find this mysterious, impossible girl, but it seems like that portion of the story has taken a back seat, as opposed now to the mysterious voice who has called up the TARDIS phone, who it is implied but has not been outright confirmed yet in this story arc that either they are a Time Lord or they have access at least to Time Lord technology. This mysterious person who was called the TARDIS phone, who is trying to nudge them in the right direction to try and find Clara, and has hijacked the TARDIS. So it takes place, this box set opens with the TARDIS exploding, and then we meet Ellery Quest, who is trying to pitch the adventures of Doctor Who to a theatre company in the 1950s about this mysterious time traveller with a cyborg friend from the future who travels in a police public call box throughout time and space. So Ellery Quest is the credited writer for this, but I think it's actually Tim Foley who wrote this, but it's so fun and meta even in just the plot description and the credits. Ellery Quest is played by Leroy Bonsu, who you can see on the cover here. He's on the right in the middle. And Ellery is trying to evade capture from these clones who are like the head of this theatre company, who has managed to split himself into like half a dozen people, chasing around London, and also interacting with the 11th Doctor and Valerie in different mediums that can tell stories. For example, at one point he's reading a comic strip, and the 11th Doctor and Valerie are talking to him through the comic strip. He hears them through the radio and through the static, and they make a reference to, is the Archers around yet? And at one point, the 11th Doctor and Valerie take the form of, and I kid you not, Punch and Judy puppets. Let's play a clip from All of Time and Space.
If you're waiting for the coast to be clear, believe me, it's never been clearer.
That's the way to do it! Sorry, couldn't resist.
No puppets, please. Things are odd enough. The artistic director I met this morning, he appears to have multiplied, and I still don't know how you did that thing on the radio. Hello?
We shouldn't make this any harder than it is, Doctor.
Then I'll put the truncheon away. It's a little aggressive.
Will you please both come out? Stop messing around.
Don't come any closer.
What? Why?
Maybe not just yet, anyway. Peer too hard at a story and you're bound to find plot holes. And we don't want you falling down any of them. Punch and Judy, that's riddled with things that don't make sense, isn't it? I keep getting the urge to grab a string of sausages.
I don't follow.
Neither do I, even at the best of times, and these are not the best of times. So just roll with it.
But I can't simply... Look, I want to talk to you, not your puppets, though they do look just how I pictured you. It's uncanny.
We can talk, but only like this, I'm afraid. If it helps, pretend that we're actually puppets.
Pretend you're... Oh, because you are actually puppets, aren't you?
I knew he would cotton on quickly.
It's mad just how many layers of performance that Jacob Dudman is working at here. Not only is Jacob like impersonating Matt Smith as the 11th Doctor, but he's impersonating Matt Smith as the 11th Doctor doing Punch and Judy, as we heard in The Snowmen. It's such a fun performance, but that's not even the beginning of the interesting stuff that Jacob Dudman does over the course of this box set. So like I said, we've got Ellery Quest, who is being chased around 1950s London by Mr. Darling, played by Richard Hope, and Darling has split himself up into like half a dozen entities who are copied and pasted identical clones that are trying to chase him because he has some sort of manuscript. Basically, like they said in that clip, don't think too hard about the plot because there are some plot holes there, but it ends up becoming a fun metatextual analysis of the writers who made Doctor Who originally, and the writers who take the story, who take the baton from the previous one and move forward with the character, with the universe, with the companions, with the blue box. It's an awful lot of fun, and it is clearly coming from a very emotionally charged and very true place with Tim Foley. Ellery Quest is the credited writer of this on the Big Finish website, but it is actually Tim Foley who's written this superb opener to the All of Time and Space box set. It's so much fun, the way they play with formats, the way they play with the idea of Ellery Quest even having a lucky coin from when he was serving in World War II. And how that plays out over the course of the story, and what happens as well with the dynamic between Valerie and the Doctor, and how they are differently, independently trying to steer this guy in the right direction. I thought that this was such a clever, fun, and very heartfelt celebration of writers and creativity in general, and for Doctor Who specifically. All of Time and Space is such a fun time, with also a really fun, wonderfully charged ending as well, where they have to sort of do a bit of a timey-wimey fix, and Valerie is not quite over the death of her mother, who we met in the first story in Geronimo, because essentially Valerie has been orphaned and is now spending time with this godlike time traveller, and is only just now learning the rules of how time and space and time travel operates, and they're not quite on board with it yet. And it also was just such a refreshing dynamic when, yeah, of course, Clara and Amy would butt heads with their respective doctors over the course of their tenure, but the fact that Valerie is often confrontational, will have a lot of agency in the stories that they're in, and also not be portrayed as this omnipotent, most important person in the room like you would get with a lot of Stephen Moffat companions. Like, I'm not trying to directly compare, like, Valerie and Clara or Valerie and Amy and River Song and stuff, but I think that's why Valerie is such a refreshing companion for the 11th Doctor. I know I started a bit of drama on Twitter. I say drama in massive quotations by saying that I think I prefer Valerie over Amy and Clara, but a lot of that is just because Valerie is so down to earth, and because of that down to earthedness, they contrast with the 11th Doctor so spectacularly well. Now, Valerie does get a great showcase story in the second one of this box set, The Yearn by Angus Dunican, where the Doctor and Valerie arrive on this spaceship that is under siege by a species called the Yearn, which are like these nightmare panther-like creatures. And Valerie even gets their own little love story, which was absolutely wonderful to see unfold. This box set is very gay, and I am all here for it. But they encounter the Methudians, who are trying to escape from the Yearn, who are being attacked in the night on this spaceship. Let's play a clip from the Yearn.
Wow, nice control room.
If you like that sort of thing.
Any change in activity this cycle?
They're favouring the South Ridge. Nothing anomalous.
Bring it up.
On screen. Those are the Yearn.
God, they're like panthers.
What are they made of?
Some kind of energy. We don't recognise it.
There's so many of them.
And this is a slow day.
They're terrifying, but also kind of...
Beautiful?
Yeah. But why do you call them the Yearn?
Because, well, they do. Listen.
God.
They attacked about 4 years ago. All over the planet, all at once. Took countless lives.
And you were hassling us? Surely they're the culprit.
No, we are hermetically sealed.
Fascinating. Well then, seems our course of action is clear. Find the TARDIS. Once we've got her back, be a doddle to get you all safely out of here.
Like that. He thinks we trust him.
You don't have to. You could lock us in a cell, or failing that, a broom cupboard, from which we will inevitably escape. I'm very good at escaping.
He really is, you know, the very best.
We'll spend good time and energy running away from you while still trying to help anyway, because, frankly, we're great. Or we could skip all that and you can trust us. What do you say?
I don't want to try and undersell the Yearn, but there is becoming a little bit of a recurring theme in my Big Finish reviews where the middle chapter is a little bit ho-hum, where the middle chapter tends to be my least favourite of these sets. Unfortunately, that tradition does continue with All of Time and Space. The Yearn is a fine base Under Siege story where I think the dynamic between Valerie and the Doctor is really showcased really well. You heard in that clip there that they're really getting used to the quirkiness and the eccentricities of the 11th Doctor. Originally, the Yearn was meant to be part of the first box set, but for whatever reason, it was axed from Geronimo and moved forward to All of Time and Space. And I'm sure there were many rewrites over the course of that journey, but I think having a story like the Yearn is so much better for Valerie's journey to have it later on, where Valerie has now sort of learned how to work with the 11th Doctor and this companion Doctor dynamic, and is just moving forward and going with the flow. That was really good. I also, like I said, I liked the romance between Valerie and also Roanna, who you heard in that clip there, played by Mia Tomlinson. It's really sweet, really lovely, very gay, loved it a lot. It's just a bit of a standard base Under Siege story that gets a little bit muddled towards the end when the Yearn wind up being a bit of a twist villain where there's an extra element as well that's sort of possessing. Honestly, it got a bit muddled and I got a little bit lost, and the story itself generally lost me a little bit. I like the character stuff. I like the dynamics between all of the actors. I forget his name. I think it's David Dobson, but he's got a wonderful voice. Ooh, like oozing in my ears. It was lovely, lovely voice for the character. I liked the character stuff, the performances were great, I loved the music in general. I just think that the Yearn is a bit of a standard base Under Siege story, and you can tell that it sticks out in All of Time and Space, because you've got All of Time and Space and Curiosity Shop, which we'll talk about in a moment, which are these really meta analyses of Doctor Who as a story, as a format, as an evolving template for writers and actors and creators. And then all of a sudden, yeah, you've just got the Yearn in the middle, which is a base Under Siege story, which has a really lovely love story for Valerie. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong. And the Yearn is fine. It just doesn't quite fit in this box set. I'm glad it's here to sort of expand Valerie's journey. And there's a great moment towards the end when the Doctor asks Valerie, hey, do you want to stay? Because I know some people who I've travelled with who have, you know, left time and space to be with someone who they've only just met. You know, Leela, Joe, Susan, etc. Although Susan didn't really have a choice. But it sticks out in the box set overall as not being quite thematically cohesive with the rest of them. And it is just a standard base Under Siege story that tries to pull a twist towards the end but ends up getting a bit muddled overall. Thankfully, the box set comes to a rip-roaring end with Curiosity Shop by James Goss. Curiosity Shop by James Goss is set on an unnamed planet in the distant future, which has just been on the receiving end of an interplanetary conflict, and everybody there is now sort of living in poverty, and there's junk everywhere, and the Doctor is nowhere to be found. However, Valerie is having frequent meetings with Mr. Foreman in a junkyard, and Mr. Foreman is taking the voice and the persona of some very familiar characters who we'll expound upon in a moment. But Valerie is visiting this junkyard in order to see the TARDIS and wait for the Doctor to arrive. However, Mr. Foreman is a bit of a haggler, so it decides that in order for Valerie to see the blue box that he's got in the junkyard, Valerie needs to hand over a cybernetic component. And Mr. Foreman has some very interesting affectations and some very interesting voices over the course of this box set. Let's play a clip from Curiosity Shop.
You're really going to tell me what this box is? You'll still pay me?
I don't have any more money.
You must have something. You're a cyborg. A component.
No.
Well, I'll let you see the box. I'll give you money for food.
Well...
There you are, then. I'm the height of generosity.
Spinal interlink.
I see. What does it do?
Helps me lift things with more strength and safely. Auto-corrects my posture. What's it worth?
Doing without costs you?
Yes. It's not painful, just...
Then me having it has value. Good.
You're nothing like the doctor.
How many times, dear child? I've never met him. Now, you are going to tell me the story of this box.
The TARDIS.
TARDIS. Silly name. No, I shall call it something better. Barbara.
Barbara.
Ah, yes. It's a perfectly fine name. Much better than TARDIS.
TARDIS stands for something.
Ah, well then. Perhaps Barbara stands for something too. Yes, big and really blue. And...
Rather awesome?
Oh, no, quite ridiculous.
James Goss always delivers when it comes to funny, witty dialogue. So, Curiosity Shop, in terms of Valerie's journey as a companion, the closest comparison I can make is that it's a cross between like 42 and also Human Nature / The Family of Blood, where Valerie has essentially been abandoned by the Doctor. And it's not like just because of some weird chameleon circuit, the Doctor is now a human type of twist like we've seen in Human Nature / The Family of Blood. Like, there is, of course, the resemblance that the Doctor, who we hear in that clip, which is mad that Jacob Dudman is impersonating Matt Smith, impersonating William Hartnell, as Flippant has said in the chat. But Valerie now has to sort of be in this war of attrition with Mr. Foreman, this person who is wearing the body of their Doctor, but does not embody the values of the Doctor. And Valerie has to give a part of herself every single time she visits Mr. Foreman. And the war of attrition, the war of patience that Valerie goes through, is akin to Martha Jones in Human Nature and the Family of Blood, where the desperation over the course of the story really rises and becomes so dramatically loaded, where basically Valerie is giving herself away in order to try and hold on another day. It's really dark. It is definitely not a broader analysis of late-stage capitalism, wink wink, but we also have in the cast as well Derek Griffith, who plays Golas, and we can see him on the cover here as well on the top right, who is playing this sort of like cafe owner, this restaurant owner who Valerie has these interludes with, because Valerie is given money by Mr. Foreman, and then there's loads of rationing going on. Golas is not giving her an awful lot of food in exchange for that money because it doesn't go as far from day to day. And you just get this sense. I think Sophia Ingar does an outstanding job in this story. And I think over the course of the hour-long story, you just get the sense that Valerie is absolutely losing their resolve, and how Valerie is being mentally worn down, and that's so imbued in Sophia's performance, and you really feel it in your bones. And Sophia portrays Valerie as almost like losing their memory and their recollection and their sense of self and identity as they are giving away their components to Mr. Foreman, who is basically just treating them as a spare part, as a commodity to be used to manipulate. And that's not the Doctor, but they are imbuing the Doctor over the course of the story through different different personas. We have the 11th Doctor embodying the 1st, the 3rd, the 4th, 5th, 6th, 9th Doctor, 10th Doctor over the course of the story, with Jacob Dudman doing some genuinely heavy lifting when it comes to the performance, where it's not just Jacob Dudman doing these impressions, it's Jacob Dudman impersonating Matt Smith doing these impersonations. It's layer upon layer, and it's really genuinely quite impressive. Jacob Dudman does a great Pertwee, and that's very surprising to hear in this story. But yeah, just the sense of Valerie losing their resolve over the course of the story, culminating in something genuinely quite heartbreaking for the character that made me well up a bit, and so much of it is carried by Sophia's performance. They do an outstanding job playing this character. I love Valerie from beginning to end. And I cannot wait for more 11th Doctor and Valerie adventures. Now, in terms of the overall structure of these Chronicle sets, we're about halfway through this, if we want to call it a season. Because we've got Volume 5 and Volume 6, which are coming out over the span of the next year or so. Volume 5 comes out in like late 2023 and Volume 6 comes out in 2024. So we're basically halfway through the season. And we don't have much more advancement on the cryptic phone calls the TARDIS is receiving, or the search for Clara Oswald, which was the inciting incident for the adventures with the 11th Doctor and Valerie. But we're halfway through the series, and I'm loving the dynamic between the two characters. I adore it completely. This is one of the most refreshing, original Doctor-companion relationships that we've had from Big Finish. It's up there with, like, the 6th Doctor and Evelyn. And while The Yearn is a standard Base Under Siege middle chapter, the box set is bookended by two very fun, metatextual, entertaining, and in the case of the Curiosity Shop, genuinely heartbreaking and sad story. This is a great box set. I think that this is a step up from Geronimo, and I loved Geronimo because All of Time and Space is pushing the characters more, is having more fun with the audio medium and having more fun with the concept, and it feels very Stephen Moffat-y. It feels very, like, timey-wimey, maybe a little bit too smart for its own good, but you're along for the ride because of the audacity of it. I really enjoyed All of Time and Space, and this is basically the recurring Big Finish line that I spout. If All of Time and Space is not in my top 10 Big Finish releases of 2023, Big Finish will have had one hell of a year.